Yes, better. We have a full agenda today, and to start the meeting, we will do introductions, and I will start on Mike Frisk, professor at Stony Brook University and chair of MRAC, and we'll start with Vincent.
Vince Fonneborgo, representing recreational fishermen, Eastern Long Island. Mark DeJong, full-time for-hire captain at Jefferson.
Melissa Dearborn, recreational representative. I own Regal Marine Products, a wholesale bait and tackle distributor based out of Huntington.
Charles Whittick, recreational fisherman, West Babylon.
Marty Gary, the director for DEC's Division of Marine Resources.
Kim Knowles, Stony Brook University.
Okay, Eddie stepped out, but he will be back in a second. And we also have two members that are joining us online. Okay, so we have a full agenda today. As of right now, we do not have a quorum. Our agenda, we'll start with a law enforcement update, followed by the South Shore Estuary Reserve request for a fisheries industry representative, shellfish and aquaculture updates, then summaries from the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission and Mid-Atlantic Fisheries Management Council. March 5th, 2026, update on Black Sea Bass Board meeting, recreational Black Sea Bass regulations, update on striped bass, PCB data review, recreational bluefish possession limit change, results of the 2026 limited entry license random selection. That will be followed by the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission advisory panel vacancies, rulemaking update, other business, upcoming meetings, and then public comment will be saved to the end of the meeting. Eddie, we did introductions when you were out of the room. Do you just want to introduce yourself before we get started?
It's your fellow commercial fisherman, South Shore.
Okay, so we're going to start the meeting. Again, I mentioned we don't have a quorum, so we won't approve the minutes of the January 20th meeting. We'll start with the law enforcement update. Sean is not here today. Do we have someone?
How you doing?
Can you just go,
Mike Unger, filling in for Sean today.
can you just go out to the mic?
Sorry.
Is that Mike Younger?
Unger, you mentioned here.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. Yeah, it's real brief. Only thing I got is we have a residential 30-week police academy going on right now. We're in week 3 up in Pulaski, New York. So we're going to get about 30 new officers. Long Island probably get 5 to 10, depending on transfers in mid-September to late September. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, so our next item is the South Shore Estuary Reserve request for a fisheries industry representative, and Chris Clapp is going to lead this presentation.
Yeah, I'll be really quick here. I'm Chris Clapp. I'm the executive director of the South Shore Estuary Reserve. The South Shore Estuary Reserve was enacted by New York State Executive Law, Article 46, back in 1993, establishing the reserve. It's sort of the National Estuary Program. We had the Long Island Sound, we had the Peconic. It was pretty clear they weren't going to get another one for the South Shore. So the state went ahead and created their own reserve system. We're housed within the Department of State's Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure, which is also where the Coastal Zone Management Program is held. And that's why they decided to put the SSER within there. So the next slide will show you, oh, maybe not. So this, we're guided by a comprehensive management plan. The comprehensive management plan has 6 different categories by which its priorities are labeled under. One is to improve water quality, increase living resources, so that's anything that's living within the waters. Expand public use and enjoyment of the estuary. This is sort of tourism related, recreation related type activities. Sustain and expand the estuary related economy. And so for those of you in this room, this is where the priorities and actions that are most important to you all fall with under. The commercial fisheries related activities are in there, as well as recreational fisheries economy. Coastal resilience, and then increase education, outreach, and stewardship. I view that last one as a tool by which you achieve all the others, right? The reserve boundary goes from the Nassau, New York City border over by Atlantic Beach, including the Atlantic Beach Inlet, all the way to the village of Southampton, and includes all of the tributaries of those bodies of water. So I thought I put a map up there. Can you check the next slide for me, please? No. All right. So apologies for that. I thought I had included that in there. What we're looking for, so our work is guided by a council, right? And that council is made up of the county executive, the Secretary of State, the county executives of both Nassau and Suffolk County, the City of Long Beach supervisor or city manager, and then the supervisors of the 6 towns from the town of Hempstead all the way to the town of Southampton. So it's Hempstead, Oyster Bay, Babylon, Islip, Brookhaven, and Southampton. There are 28 villages within the boundaries of the reserve. And so there's a mayor's appointment by the New York Conference of Mayors. We are also guided, the council is supported by a citizens advisory committee and the technical advisory committee. The chairs of those committees also have a seat on the council. And then we get into a number of organizations that were specifically called out. So the Great South Bay Audubon Society, the Dean of Selmas, the New York Sport Fishing Federation, which we understand they no longer exist. And in their absence, the New York Coalition for Recreational Fishing has expressed interest in serving on the council in their place. That will come up at our next council meeting in April. The Long Island Association, that seat is likely going to be open soon, as this is just not one of their priorities. Long Island Builders Institute, a property owners association. This has been the Mastic Beach Property Owners Association once served in that role. The Islip Leaseholders Association once served in that role. And right now, the Fire Island Association has expressed interest in fulfilling that vacancy. And then there's a marina industry rep. Chris Squeary is not here. He has been for a long time been the marina industry rep. The Nature Conservancy serves as the appointed environmental org by Nassau County. And then Suffolk County has 2 positions which they appoint as well. A Baymen's Association representative, which is currently Eric Coquel, who's also the president of Lyoga. Edwin, I believe he was a bayman and then transitioned to being an aquaculturist. So he kind of has a foot in both worlds.
Or Eric Capel.
It was, I thought it was Eric.
Eric Capel is Capel.
Capel.
So he's an oyster grove.
Yeah.
With, as far as I know, no history with the
Okay.
payments.
But they haven't shown up, right? So that seat may be open as well.
The president now, what happened?
We could follow that up offline.
Yeah, and also just hit the microphone so we can get it back and forth. But let's let Chris get to the president.
The reason why I'm here today is like the hole in my council right now is a charter boat or party boat industry representative. This for a long time has been Mike Egan, and so this seat is open, and so Suffolk County is seeking to appoint a new representative for this seat, and so that's why I'm here today. I figured where better to come and make a pitch for participation than from you all. So I don't. If you could check the next slide. Probably just this highlights some of the progress that I've made on some vacancies. I just heard from Great South Bay Audubon Society that they are once again interested in their seat. And then the final one on the bottom is the charter boat rep. So if anyone has any intel or wants to spread the word, we would love to have, this would be the first time ever that our council is full. It's been a really long time since we've had a full council. And I'd be more than happy to have somebody or a recommendation from somebody in this group there. I'll just go over really quick. Everyone wants to know, I show up to meetings, what's in it for me, right? So let me just read through some of those outcomes in chapter 5 of our comprehensive management plan. The 5.1 is promote public-private efforts to enhance the economic viability of water-dependent businesses. Address commercial fishing issues specific to the finfish, mollusk, arthropod, and algae fisheries. Advance the recreational fishing industry within the reserve. Pretty clear on that one. Enhance the reserve boating experience. So that's a little bit more in Chris's wheelhouse with regard to recreational boating. Redevelopment of waterfronts and revitalization of maritime centers. We've been working really closely with Suffolk County on their working waterfronts, doing some outreach to property owners to try and, in my perspective, focus on those properties that commercial fishing and recreational fishing and the aquaculture industry need most. Increase interest in the skilled and technical marine trades. We understand that there's a lot of interest, but a lack of support for the marine industry. Increase safety for youths and adults through the reserve. And then just in general, increase tourism within the reserve. And there's a whole suite of action items that fall underneath each one of these. If you'd like to find out more, please reach out. And I think my contact information is on the next page. If not, I have cards here as well. You guys can't see that. I'm sorry.
Okay, do we have questions? Any interest from council members? Yes, yeah, Mark?
I mean, you're looking for a party chart. I mean, I have personally very limited knowledge of the South Shore. I am a North Shore guy. But I do know a lot of people, and if you want, give me a couple cards and I'll talk to some people, see if there's some interest there.
Anyone else?
Are there questions? Elizabeth?
Yeah, no, we'll catch up, Edwin.
You had mentioned Eric Capel. Which representation, which one of the,
He was the Bayman's rep.
the Bayman's rep? Okay. And you said that you haven't,
He came to one meeting a year and a half ago and hasn't been back since. So, give him a chance.
okay,
There is language within the enabling legislation that calls for a member to be notified if they don't participate in 60% of meetings within a year. So being that we meet quarterly, if you don't show up to 3 out of the 4 meetings, you get a notice.
okay.
But it's rare for anyone to be excused, but we give people the option to show up, but it does impact us to get to a quorum if a quarter of the seats are vacant.
Of course. And I'm not trying to call him out in any way, but I do think that it's important to have some sort of representation of aquaculture. So if that's something that he is no longer able to do, perhaps there's someone else who might be interested in being a part of that, because I think that is, especially you were talking about, obviously the economic viability and the revitalization of the maritime centers. That's something that we've been working, oyster growers have been working with the county pretty closely on that. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Oh, Marty?
Yeah, and just real quick to dovetail on Elizabeth's comments. When I saw Bayman and you mentioned Eric, I mean, my first thought is a lot of times you can't neatly carve out every single niche, right?
Right.
So I felt like that was trying to get toward the shellfish industry, but of course there's a big difference between aquaculture and wild harvest. And I don't know whether, the scope of the membership, Crystal, really allows you to have both of those, but I guess just speaking from where we sit, I imagine that would be valuable to have both sectors represented.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing to stop any member of the public or any other interested party from showing up to a council meeting and having their voice heard. We're reaching out to program staff directly and coordinating. So that's, we're not a, we're a public entity just like yours. And I'm also, just to be clear, I'm not naive to the fact that it's really difficult to get, fishermen of any sort that depend on this for revenue to show up to a meeting in the middle of the day. So I recognize that's a challenge. So it goes with the territory.
Melissa?
Did you say that the spot for the recreational or for the New York Federation was already going to be filled by the Coalition for Recreational Fishing, or are you still looking for representation?
They're the only ones that have expressed interest. If you know of another group that's does primarily its business within the South Shore Estuary Reserve, then please reach out.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
They've expressed interest a couple months ago.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Just really quickly, on the conversation about Bayman, for years, Flo Sharkey served on the Citizens Advisory Committee. So there's another avenue for people who really want to get engaged through the Citizens Advisory.
Yeah, so the Citizens Advisory Committee typically meets remotely in the evening, right? So, which is much easier for your members. So, for instance, there's a Citizens Advisory Committee tonight at 7 p.m. So it's a little bit more accessible for those who make a living on the water.
Okay, so what we could do, we're going to probably add some vacancies on this council, and when the bulletin goes out to the front, and so we could add this as well, so we can get the word out to the list that you're looking for someone, because a lot of people today are out on the water. So anything else? Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again.
Okay, so our next topic is shellfish agriculture highlights. And before we start that, I want to just take this moment to welcome our newest member, Elizabeth Peoples, and I think you'll probably be interested in the next topic. And do you just want to take a second just to introduce yourself, your background, and your business? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sure. So I'm Elizabeth Peoples. I co-own Little Ram Oyster Company. We are based in Southold on the North Fork, and our farm is on the east side of Shelter Island in Gardner's Bay. I was out this morning, which is why my face is so red. But we have been in business since 2018 and are part of the Suffolk County Aquaculture Lease Program. So we have a 10-acre lease, and we just recently received a second 10-acre lease for a total of 20 acres, and have various permits with the DEC for our nursery that is in the marina where we work. We have an on-land facility there as well, and then that's I guess that's about it. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome, and
Thank you very much.
Michael.
yes, sure. Marty.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I just also wanted to welcome you as well on behalf of all the DEC folks here that meet with the council. And I had a chance to meet you and come out to visit your farm. I guess it was probably the first year I was here, and I had a great visit. And I can't quite remember, but I think when I told you I came from Maryland, I don't know if it was you or
Both of us.
both of
Yeah.
you. Okay, so there we go. So we have more Marylanders here.
Chesapeake Bay estuary roots as well. Yeah.
Exactly. But I was incredibly impressed with the operation and all. And I'm really happy, we have your presence here. We haven't really had that sector. I mean, I think there's historically, there has been some representation, but it's really good. And I've also, working with Mike, you'll come to find out, please bring us issues from your industry to this council. But I know one that's weighing on you right now is the ice impacts. And
Absolutely.
feel free at some point, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if we can figure out a way, if we can, if Elizabeth wanted to articulate some of those struggles, but it'd be good for the council to understand what they're dealing with right now and how DEC and others are reacting to that. So I'll turn it back to you, but if there's a way, maybe later, maybe that's something we ought to probably add on. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for the warm welcome.
Okay, and so next up, Shellfish Aquaculture Highlands.
Hi there, Elizabeth. Nice to see you again. It's probably Wade Carden, Shellfish Management Unit Leader. I don't think we've probably talked since the Suffolk County meeting years ago. But yeah, Marty, based on your joining the council, had just asked me to give a brief 5-minute overview, 30,000 feet look at the shellfish aquaculture industry here in New York. So if you just advance to the next slide. What we just have here is obviously an aerial of the island, and the first thing you'll notice is that all of our commercial shellfish aquaculture occurs in Suffolk County. New York's a bit unique relative to other states in the region, and that it's typically not the state that is providing access to the underwater land for aquaculture. We have as you're all aware, the municipalities along the South Shore have underwater land rights of Great South Bay, so Islip, Babylon, Brookhaven. Then we have a unique situation out in Peconic Bays to where, going back to 1969, the state legislature ceded control of Peconic Bays from Flanders Bay out to a line running roughly north-south from the tip of Plum Island down to Goff Point by Napeague. So everything back west of that line is Suffolk County's jurisdiction for a leasing program where they establish specific cultivation zones where farming can occur. And then the state does have limited provision of access in the form of these DEC, temporary marine area use assignments. There's only a handful of those. That was really an interim program that was developed in the early 80s because Suffolk had not yet initiated an access program in Peconics. So the way it stands today, those are the main programs. I'll start down on the left side of the slide there. So in Great South Bay, we have the town of Islip's roughly 120-acre lease area east of Captree Island. It's roughly 20 individual farms operating there. It's a shallow site. The town has also looked to expand their program with an area south of Heckscher State Park. They've not yet leased anything out, and we have not permitted anything there, but that's on the horizon. And heading to the east, town of Brookhaven has a really modest program, 7 or 8 leases. All these lease sites are small scale, between 1 and 5 acres typically on the South Shore. And then as we get out into Peconic Bays, Suffolk County's aquaculture lease program, the typical lease site is 10 acres in area, square-shaped lease. And some of those larger blobs you see there are actually privately owned underwater lands, oyster grants that go back possibly 100 years or more, back to the time when the Suffolk County Shellfish Commissioners were managing shellfish harvest out there. And then the DEC temporary assignments that I mentioned that would only be in a few locations in Long Island Sound and one on Fisher's Island, they are 5 acres. So yeah, everyone's farming oysters, and pretty much is what we term bottom culture, meaning that the shellfish are in some sort of container, cages, racks, bags, etc. And because that's totally what our industry is now relative to someplace like across the Sound in Connecticut, to where there's dredging of shellfish from the bottom. That off bottom and on bottom in New York has come to mean more of, are your cages on the bottom or off the bottom? It's really from almost from the shellfish perspective itself. Is it in touch with the sediment, or is it inside a container? So everyone's farming oysters in containers. Might have a few growers that are doing a little bit of experimentation with hard clams on their lease or bait scallops, but nothing that's getting reported into landings. So just to give you some of our most recent permitting stats, 24, we issued 82 permits. 7 of those were new. That's the typical number on any given year. We usually lose an average of 5 growers and gain 5 more year to year, so that number stays pretty static. 56 growers in 24, right around 70%, were all reporting production. We have 1 grower in the industry that is also doing seaweed, sugar kelp, down in Mauritius Bay in Brookhaven's program. 2024, we saw an annual production of 10.3 million oysters, so that was a record. 9.8 million of that was for market sales, and then another 500,000 was restoration. That's kind of been started out as a COVID relief program with the SOAR program, supporting oyster aquaculture and restoration. And it's almost become another avenue for growers to sell oysters to NGOs for doing restoration work. And really the percentage of farmed oysters in New York relative to wild harvest has really gone up. We're at 92% of all oysters harvested in the state are from aquaculture, with a dockside value of about $7.5 million. So that, in a nutshell, is the industry. I would certainly invite you to any comments you would like to make about it as well. But if anyone has any questions for either of us.
I got a question, Wade. Where are they talking about putting the ones off of Hector State Park? Because you're going to interfere with 3 guys that conch there and 1 guy goes eeling there.
Yeah, it's been a little surprising because all of this planning work was done years ago, but the town has not yet moved forward with actually, executing a lease. So I'm not sure what the holdup is. All of their planning work has been done. Although they did get, I guess it was summer before last, a $10 million grant to build a brand new shellfish hatchery. So that might have shifted their priority to focus solely on that versus expanding their leasing program. But yeah, I mean, there's maps on the town's webpage that would show you where the areas are.
Yeah. Elizabeth?
It's good to see you again, Wade. Just to clarify, that 10.3 million, is that the landings?
Yeah, that's production. That's including what went to commercial markets as well as $500,000 for restoration.
Because I think what's an interesting point to make is that that's the 10.3 million that actually were landed, most of which is harvestable size going to market. But what we have out on the farm is anywhere from 2 to 3 times that at any given point. So you're talking about 20 to 30 million oysters that are actually in the estuary or in the bays that are improving water quality. So just an interesting note, I think.
Do we have other questions from the council? Anyone in the audience? Carl, of you?
It's not a question. I just think it's an interesting observation. If you look at all of our wild extractive fisheries and put them on a graph of trends over time, and then you look at the opportunities and revenue and jobs in aquaculture, it sort of seems to be leveling off in terms of people, but the it's really positive trajectory and people making a living off the water.
Okay, thank you, Wade. Okay. Next on our agenda are the summaries from the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission and Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. And we have John Maniscalco to handle that.
Thanks, Mike. And these will be pretty quick. And of course, if you had any questions about the proceedings that were included in the greater summary documents that were attached to the meeting minutes, please ask after I go through these. I just pulled up a couple of highlights from ASMFC. They did the assessments for lobster for all the different management regions. So New England lobster, which is of course, where New York finds itself, the stock's at an all-time series low, and it has been for the last, 5 to 10 years at least. Reproduction is very, very low, and so you've just kind of got this low level fishery, and it seems to be persisting, and there's no plans at the moment to take any additional management action. Lobster, of course, challenged quite a bit by water temperature and climatic change. Also at this meeting, there was the allocation of the liberalization for recreational black sea bass, but Rachel's going to go into that a bit later. And finally, there was further discussion about formation of the striped bass working group. And if anyone has any questions about that, Marty would be your best source. So I don't know if there's any questions about ASMFC or if I should move on to the Mid-Atlantic Council.
Anyone from the audience? Okay.
Next slide for the Mid-Atlantic Council. So just a couple of highlights from the Mid-Atlantic. Government shutdown has pushed the timeline back for the fishing effort survey and the calibration of those time series from MRAC. So now we're looking at getting those new time series of catch and effort for all of our species sometime in summer 2026. The recreational sector separation amendment in particular, they're talking about developing a work group from the recreational sectors to kind of further guide where this amendment is going. And so I think the idea right now is to have that work group in September of 2026. And be on the lookout from communications from the council. Certainly will pass them along, if you're interested in participating. And then finally, the elect squid quota, and what this concept is exploring using underutilized quota that the Canadians hold when American fleets fully utilize our quota. So elect squid is generally a far offshore species. But there are years where, especially when lalago is not as relatively available, we fully utilize the elect squid quota, and now we're looking at how we could use some of the Canadian quotas since they harvest a mere fraction of what they're allowed. Any questions?
I believe the SSC is discussing that issue today as we meet.
Yep.
Do we have questions for John? Melissa?
I was gonna ask the timeline on the elect squid, but you said they're meeting today, but depending on the outcome of that, would that be something to go into effect this year or next year?
I mean, I would assume something like next year, and I'm not sure if there's international agreements that have to be struck, so I don't know, but I expect it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, and it would have to go from the SSC to the council. Okay. Any additional questions? Carl?
John, National Academy of Sciences just did a report on MRAC. I honestly haven't read it yet, and it may be too soon to ask this question, but the question is, yeah, do you envision any changes in the way New York does its work based on the new assessment from National Academy of Sciences?
I thoroughly read the report. There's some really good.
Yeah, Rachel, can you just, yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi. So I did read the report and I sat in on the meeting. There was some really great feedback that came out of that work. As of right now, there are no tangible changes of what will happen in New York, but I think there will be things in the future that MRIC might look into funding as far as improvements to the survey.
All right, I think Carl snuck in a non-agenda item there in the middle of the meeting, but that's okay. Okay, John, are we now on the March 5th, 2026?
Sure, Black Sea Bass.
Yeah, is that where we are? I'm just making
I
sure.
think so.
Yeah, okay.
Hi again, Rachel Sizak from the Marine Fin Fish Unit. Nice to meet you, Elizabeth. So ASMFC and the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council had a joint meeting on February 4th, which took the previously approved 20% coastwide liberalization and allocated it out to the different regions based on guidance from Addendum 32, which is, the directive there is to try to improve equity whenever you are given the opportunity to liberalize. So out of that meeting, essentially the northern region was given 27% of that liberalization. New Jersey, the southern region got 16.5%, and then New Jersey was given the remaining share after the northern region and southern region kind of fully calculated their liberalization. And I just put a little pie chart there so you can kind of see visually the northern region, which includes New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, is that big blue portion, and we did get the largest share of that liberalization. The directive then was for states to work within their regions, again, to that same Addendum 32 language, which was to increase equity as much as possible. Next slide. So for the Plan New York management for 2026 through 2027 is season opening on May 16th. The possession limits remain the same, and then we are going down 1/2 inch to 16 inches. And the above measures were approved at the March 5th board meeting, and they represented for New York a 29.9% liberalization from last year for New York anglers. And we are currently in our regulatory process, trying to adopt those measures prior to that season start date. Any questions?
Okay, we had a lot of questions on this last meeting, so
Yeah.
I'll start with Melissa, then Mark.
I mean, it definitely seems as though with negotiations, you were able to come up with a plan that hit on doing a little bit of a decrease as well as an increase in the season, and that was, I think, number 1 and 2 on the survey results, even though a lot of people had really hoped that we were going to get down at least an inch, and that was not even on the table to begin with. But I am curious because at the last meeting, I thought that there might be another survey done, that there was going to be a slew of options, not a slew, but a couple of options to look at, and it was something we were going to discuss here. And it seems as though this is it, you're moving forward. And in all of the regions, the northern region, it seems as though there's just one option and everyone is moving forward. So was that just like a kind of a negotiation that happened with all of the states that you had to kind of pick something and move forward? If you could just elaborate on that.
Absolutely, it's a great question. So unfortunately, the timeline for this was very tight, and we couldn't put together a suite of options to put in front of this group without knowing ultimately what our liberalization was going to be. We were from the outset hopeful to get more than 20% to achieve things, but that was going to involve especially that February
4th meeting. Between that meeting and coming up with options, we only had less than 2 weeks to pull all of that together, and that was to run all the model runs and to do all the negotiations within our region. So unfortunately, because of that tight timeline and the ability to meet with other state representatives, and also the way that the model operated this year and how we had access to it, it kind of really shrunk our timeline, which was, I was hopeful that that wouldn't happen, but that was kind of why we did a survey about priorities, so that we could at least know when we went to the negotiating table what was first, what was second, and kind of third. And then just to elaborate on the 15.5 inches would have been a 55% liberalization for our state. So unfortunately, that was not in the mix, but we tried to do the 1/2 inch and then a mix of, expanding the season and limits. And ultimately, May 16th is the start date for our whole region. So we'll now all have the same start date. And even New Jersey is fairly close. Theirs is May 15th start date. So we're coming more into line with each other as much as possible. But yes, I'm sorry about the tight timeline for everything. That's kind of why we unfortunately had to just do the priority survey this year.
Okay, Mark, and then Charlie.
Melissa kind of asked out most of my question, but I know that at the last meeting, what we were staring at was, in my opinion, pretty much a nothing burger. So I do want to say thank you. This is not like a boon, but it's something, the earlier open is going to help some people for sure. So this is what we got. This is what we got.
Thanks.
Charlie?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. Did you say, I just couldn't hear you, that 15.5 would be a 55% cut?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know what the minimum sizes are going to be, particularly in Connecticut, but Rhode Island, Mass?
Yeah. So I think we had an extra slide all the way at the end, but if memory serves, Connecticut is going to be at 15.5, and the rest are also going to be at 16. Connecticut only took a 14% liberalization this round, and that was primarily through just the dropping in size and opening up that small closure they had.
Okay, and again, I usually don't do things like this, but I would like to publicly thank the team that's done here from DEC. And I listened to the meeting, and I think you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions from the council, the audience? Oh, Mark's got one more.
Well, I do find it somewhat curious that Connecticut was able to drop to 15.5 with 17% liberalization, whereas the same drop for us equals 55%. I'm sorry?
They were already at 16.
They were at 16 already?
Yeah.
Okay. Noted, Mark. Okay, so, all right, thank you, Rachel. Okay, so we're on the striped bass PCB data review update.
Might want to sell.
Yeah.
Mike. Sure this can pick me up, but I'll provide the striped bass contaminant update. All right, so we've included a map for you, but I'm just going to read from some notes. I've been on lead, but also working tightly with John and his staff with DOH, and how the risk assessment and now analysis of the data has been moving forward. So for my notes from my last meeting with DOH, I'm just going to read this to you. So the New York Department of Health has completed their review of striped bass data, for contaminants. The contaminant data includes polychlorinated biphenyls, methylmercury, and PFAS. And these were collected from commercial fishing zones 1 through 5, which are shown on the chart here, surrounding Long Island. Based on the review at DOH, they're in the process of drafting a subsection for a report for management review with the recommendations for updating consumption advisories. So this would be for recreational consumption advisories, but there's also a notable closure for commercial fishing, so that's also being evaluated. The report being generated is not considered a complete document until DOH has received the complete data set from New York City waters, which also includes Arthur Kill, East and Harlem Rivers, Jamaica Bay. So they're still pending that data, and we hope that data will be transferred to DOH shortly. The final report, which would include Long Island and New York City waters, will formalize the DOH recommendations for striped bass consumption advisories, and the update for DOH's progress will be provided hopefully at the May or the July meeting of this council. And I think Mike's going to talk to you at some point during the meeting about a need to move that May meeting. But so I'll just reiterate, we're missing one piece, the information that needs to go over to DOH. And so hopefully that will be transferred from DEC. I'm not sure if that's with Hale Creek Laboratory or not, but we're looking into that now. Once they get that, they'll go ahead and perform the risk analysis there. They'll complete their report and then submit that. Also notable, I wanted to pass along to you, this past week, it was an open meeting, but I listened into it. It was the Hudson River, and I mess up the acronym, Estuary Management Action Committee, I think. And so DOH presented at that meeting, and every April they have a consumption, some sort of an update to the statewide consumption advisories. So they presented a lot of information on the Hudson River. And so a couple things were notable. They noticed, at least in the lower Hudson, so that's not too far from the harbor complex that's still pending, that concentrations are declining across multiple species levels in the lower river. Variability still exists year to year. Species polychlorinated biphenyl concentrations may be influenced by habits or characteristics rather than just PCB availability. And for the first time in 50 years, that sensitive populations will be able to consume some fish species from the lower Hudson River. For those of you that track these recreational consumption advisories, I think it was a 0. It's going to go to a 4-1, it looks like, when they update in April. So 4 meals per month for the general population and 1, and I'm talking about striped bass, just to be specific. There were a whole number of other species that they looked at. But again, these concentrations in PCBs were dropping throughout multiple species. So their final takeaway in that meeting was, even with more protective guidelines in place, they're still seeing PCB levels low enough to relax some advisories in the lower Hudson. So that's good news there. We still don't know and can't say about Long Island and the harbor complex, the city waters. But we're hoping, again, we can come back at the May meeting. Hopefully, worst case, it'll be the July meeting. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chair, and take any questions if anybody has them.
Questions? I got 2 questions, Marty. When you said something about a commercial commercial closure, what's that all about?
So on the chart that's projected, I want to say the waters, and John, correct me if I'm wrong with this, it's Long Island Sound waters, then the ocean side just to this is my geography, I'm still learning. It's the Fire Island Inlet west, or is it? No, it's where the Rockaways? East Rockaways. East Rockaways, okay, got it.
Zones 1 and 2 on that map.
Okay, and I don't have a cursor, so yeah, so let's see. So you got it. So it's in 3 is not. Right, that's the way 3 is part of it. 3 is open.
3 is open.
1 and 2 is closed.
Right.
And then this area here, right?
Right. That's area 5. Right.
That's
okay. All right. That's the way it's been. My other,
yes.
Look, actually, I have 2 other questions now.
Okay.
One is, what is the parts per thousand on the level of
million.
parts per million in the PCBs? And been a bass now. Do they have a number?
Well, so if you looked at the raw data and we had a chance to look at it, and we're not doing the risk analysis, they are, and we have to wait for that. It's what their risk analysis says. No, we've seen the raw data. If you look at it, you see a lot of levels relative to the last time this was done that are below that 1 part per million. I don't want to provide any kind of false expectations for you. I don't know. I guess what I would say, and John, I don't know if you concur, when I looked at it, you shared it within our staff, these levels look like they were largely lower than they had previously been. And many of those metrics were below, or those sample metrics were below the 1 part per million. Is that accurate? Okay. So it's definitely trended in a positive direction. It seems consistent with the messaging, the same things they observed in the lower Hudson. Whether that translates into the same liberalization for recreational consumption advisories and affects the closure and opens them, I don't think I can tell you that. We need to get that report back from them. But, you know, it looks promising. But again, I don't want to elevate your expectations too far. We need to get that report.
I asked Maureen Davison a while ago if the closure line was at Rockaway Inlet, how come I can't possess a straight bass in Great South Bay to tag it commercially?
That discussion has come up with numerous stakeholders, and I'm not 100% sure it's a transit issue, is it not? You're talking about if you can possess it on one side and you can on, I'm not sure.
I can possess it on the east side of Smith Point Bridge. Technically, there's nothing on the books. Technically, there's nothing on the books, right, that says I can't possess it on the Great South Bay, but technically it's like you can't, but you can, because there's nothing on the book. I don't quite know what that gray area is there. Like I said, I asked Maureen Davison about it once before, and she really couldn't find anything on it. And I kind of been kicking around because, you know, here it is August, and I happen to catch a bass up in where I'm fishing way up by Davis Park there, and I can't do anything with it. It's kind of,
yeah, it could be me struggling to understand your question, but I think the answer, I think, is as simple as you can only fish where it's open, and you can't fish where it isn't open. And if you fish where it is open, you can take those fish to market, but you can't fish in an area that's closed and take it to, you can't fish in an area that's closed. You're saying the area is closed or open?
The area is open to fish there. Just with the striped bass, technically, you're not supposed to possess them west of the Smith Point Bridge. Now, I want to know why, if the line is up by Rockaway.
So again, it's me, your 2.5-year visitor from Maryland, trying to struggle. But who on staff can somebody on staff understand the demarcation that Eddie's talking about? And do you know? We're powwowing.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's what he gave us about before. I asked you about this one before. You couldn't quite come up with the answer. Oh, the there. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so it sounds like we'll get back to you on that, Eddie. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Anyone from the audience? Okay. All right, our next agenda item is recreational bluefish possession limit change, and that is Rachel.
I'm back. At the joint ASMFC and Mid-Atlantic Management Council meeting in August of 2025, the board had approved a coast-wide increase to recreational possession limits. And the final federal rule was published February 19th, 2026. And New York is currently working through the process to adopt these new measures. So essentially there's an increase of 2 fish for each sector. So 5 fish for individuals and 7 fish for anglers aboard licensed party charter vessels. And again, we're hoping to have that in place hopefully by April 1st, but it's still in the regulatory process. That's all I have on this one.
Melissa?
On this one and also the one for black sea bass, is that going through regular management measures or emergency measures?
Emergency.
Okay.
For emergency?
Yes.
Additional questions? Open up to the audience. Okay, thank you, Rachel. Okay, results of the 2026 limited entry license random selection.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I'm in the Marine Permit Office. So this year we had our random selection on Thursday, February 19th at 10 a.m. It took place here and it was also live streamed on WebEx for people to tune in. I've got up here the permits that were available and the number of applicants. So we had 17 food fish resident out of 79 applicants, 9 crab permits with 37 applicants, 3 whelk permits with 72 applicants, and then 1 whelk non-resident with 4 applicants. We did also have 1 crab non-resident permit available, but only 1 applicant, so we didn't need to do a selection. That person just got the license. There were no food fish non-resident licenses available this year, and 1 of the crab resident selectees was later deemed to be ineligible, so an alternate person was selected for that one. Everything has been issued at this point, and our new form to indicate your interest in being included for next year is going to go up at the end of this month. Once again, similar to prior years, we'll send you the form. You indicate that you're interested in being included in the random selection, and then in October we send out applications to everyone to get things back to us. And later in the year, I'll provide more information on that. I also have a second slide. So we did get some feedback this year that there's an aspect to the law regarding the random selection that some applicants were not aware of. So I just wanted to address it here. So I have here, it's hard to read, I'm sorry, but the text there is an excerpt from the environmental conservation law that addresses applicants who are qualifying based solely on party charter income. Only 10% of the available licenses can go to those applicants. So this year, this happens every year. This law has been on the books for a long time, but sometimes depending on the number of licenses available or the candidates, based on how they're qualifying, it's not always relevant necessarily. But this year we had a number of applicants who qualified based on this income. So we did hear later that some people were not aware of this aspect of the law. So I just wanted to address it here, acknowledge that it is something that is part of the random selection. We follow it every year. And I have intentions to increase awareness of this when candidates are applying and providing their income to qualify in case it impacts what they provide. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we did get some feedback that people were not aware of this. So. And that was everything I had.
Mark?
Yeah, I actually got some phone calls on that exact thing. And the couple things I want to say, but one of them is when this individual asked why only 1 license out of the 17 was being given to somebody who made their income through party charter, they were basically told, well, that's just the way it's always been. Okay. I don't know why we're excluding. It's a random selection. I call it the lottery. If younger people want to make their full-time living on the water, regardless of where they're starting, they should have that opportunity. We should not be limiting people like me. I would have done it when I was younger if I had a boat to do it with. If somebody who works in the for-hire industry wants to supplement their income, commercial rod and reel fishing, we should give them every opportunity to do so rather than exclude them from 90% of the licenses. It doesn't really seem reasonable or fair.
I understand that. Currently, this is how the law is written, so this is what we follow. But I mean, certainly a discussion for, support to potentially have the legislature change that, I would understand.
That's a legislative issue. It has to go through the,
Yes, this is not in regulation. This
Yeah.
is in law, unfortunately. So it's a little bit more of a difficult process. And I don't know the history of where these clauses came from. I personally don't have that background. I don't know if anybody else in the room has that, but that is the current state of things. And we can't do fractions of a license. So in order to have 10%, you need at least 10 in order to get one whole license, which, yeah.
round up, and things like this.
We were told that we could not. We did ask because we had 9 crab permits this year, so that question did come up, and we were told that we could not. We need a one whole license, unfortunately.
Eddie? I have a problem, Mark. I know about 5 or 6 contractors that want to go out and become commercial fishermen, but yet they still have a running business. But yet they want to go and sell their fish, which cuts into my pocket. That had happened already. And to me, if you have a running business, you know what? You're going to give that up and prove that you're going to be a straight commercial fisherman, then I have no problem with it. But if you're still going to run your day-to-day operation with construction and doing this and doing that, building and whatever, and you're going to go play on the side, that's something I have a real problem with, because then you're cutting into my pocket. So I'm just throwing it out there. You understand where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from, and I think in a way you understand where I'm coming from. You know, I'm not talking about even, I mean, the ship has sailed for me. I am what I am, you know, but I'm talking about 24, 25-year-old kid who, you know, and it's hard to break in.
Well, like you got a deckhand running on your boat for 3 or 4 years, and also now he's 22, 23 years old, and he wants to become a commercial fisherman. Hey, all for it. But like I said, I know about 5 or 8 contractors. My neighbor works for one of them. What do you get your license? This and that. Blah, blah, blah. Dude, you go out with your buddies, and now you want to go sell your fish. No, you have a business. You know.
I'm not banging the nail next to you.
Yeah, you know, and again, we could also go down the rabbit. We could also go down the rabbit hole of delaying licenses, and you know, it's. I was just voicing some.
Anyway, that was it. Unless anybody else has questions.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So next up on the agenda are the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission Advisory Panel vacancies. I don't know who's covering that. I guess Mark.
Maybe I'm covering it. Maybe what would be good for now is to, unless John, you have the list, I don't have the list in front of me. We don't have the list. So I just know that there are multiple ASMFC advisory panel members listed for New York, and some of these folks haven't attended in years. So I worked with Tina Berger to get the master roster and went through that. And essentially, I think what we'll do is go ahead and email you. It's not urgent. We pick this up at the next ASMFC quarterly meeting in May, but it would be good when we next meet next month. Perhaps we can email you these vacancies and let's have a quick discussion. I think there's 4 or 5 of them, and again, 0 attendance in at least 3, if not 4 or 5 years. And there's not even email replies to Tina saying, sorry, I can't make it this time around. So these folks have disengaged from the process, but we're lacking representation on these advisory panels. So, and we'll break it out by sector and give you that information so you can think about it coming into the next meeting. So I think, Mr. Chair, that'll suffice for now, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Then next up is rulemaking. Oh, wait, I have a question. Paul Reese?
Yeah. Thank you. Excuse my voice. Good point, Marty. I don't follow the commission much, but on the council, I know there are some APs that really aren't representing New York well. And I think aside from filling the seats, we should try to actively recruit some people that are going to speak for New York because it's not helpful. Thank you.
Well, real quick, if I could just ask you a question. So I was familiar with the attendance because Tina Berger, the commission, can provide a whole spreadsheet and says this person sits on the Bluefish AP and hasn't shown up. It goes back like to 2008 or something like that. But do you think, I guess we could reach out, maybe you say there's some people that aren't also at the council, and maybe I'm not familiar. I don't have that data, so I haven't seen that. But what you're telling me there is. So
yeah, I haven't looked. So I mean, I remember Maureen on the Bluefish committee. We were going through applications, and there really wasn't anybody from New York on there, and there were no applications, which is a fault of our constituents. But I think we need to start looking towards younger people and recruiting people to be on these APs to speak for New York because it will be very helpful in the process.
And one last question for you. I certainly will work with the council to that effect. And I know you have contacts throughout the community. Could we reach out to you as well for?
Yeah, I'll definitely work with you on that. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have rulemaking.
Next slide. All right, so our first one is just the proposed rule that's been proposed. I think it was last time, it was also, had just been the public comment for this. This is the commercial striped bass tag transfer program. The public comment period is open until March 30th, I believe. I don't know if it's up there. Yeah, March 30th. And then we will be having the public hearing at March 24th at 2 p.m., which will be virtual. We've received a couple public comments so far on this, but not that many. And the effective adoption target date is still, the goal is still to be the last week of April, first week of May. And then just another quick update on this. I sent out the commercial tag order packets yesterday. There is a memo in there that's just to say that this is still proposed, so we can't develop the program. We can't move forward with the program until it is officially adopted. But once it is, we will notify everyone of the program and how to go about applying to be in it. And then one more comment on this is I know last time we discussed that it might be possible to roll the start date of the season into this rule. Upon analyzing that a bit more, it might actually be considered a substantive change. So we might not be able to actually roll it into this rule, but it's noted that that is desirable for the commercial industry. So we will hopefully be able to try to do it into another rule. It just might not be for this season. So that was the update on that. Next, please. This upcoming rule on Atlantic cod, this is the same one that's been sitting for a while. This rule will amend the Atlantic cod recreational fishing regs to prohibit possession in New York state waters, and this rule will achieve consistency with federal regulations and the waters of neighboring states. That it is currently still with the chamber. It has been for a few months, so the target filing date is still to be determined. I haven't gotten much of a reason as to why it's being held up, but it is still currently with the chamber. Next slide. And then Rachel discussed these before, but just the upcoming rules, they'll both be emergencies. That Bluefish recreational rule, that's currently on my desk. I'll go to Marty, hopefully after this meeting. And then Black Sea Bass Rachel's currently working on it. And so those will be done as emergencies and in place by the start of the seasons. That's it.
Questions from the council? Questions from the audience? Okay. We are on to other business. It looks like John Maniscalco is handling that.
Thank you. So these are just a few small things that came up that didn't necessarily, need an agenda item of their own. TJ had asked for a Tautog tag update. He's not here, but basically, so nothing has changed. I've gotten a few phone calls in the last couple of months from fishermen unhappy with the current tag. Where we're at right now is we're going to be talking with ASMFC about the ability to have a second alternative tag in circulation in New York State. If they allow us to do that, then we can go about trying to identify a more expensive tag that individuals can choose to use and pay for if they're really concerned about their live market fish not encountering some of the problems that some people have reported with the current metal tag. So again, the goal is to keep the current metal tag in circulation. It is certainly the most affordable option, but for those who deal extensively with live market fish and want to make sure they have fish in peak condition, I hope to be able to offer something like a T-bar or something else that it will probably have a higher price tag associated with it, but hopefully will keep the fish in better shape. But until ISMC allows us to do that, we can't offer a second alternative tag in New York State. So we'll be pursuing that with ASMFC. There's an addendum that is in development. We're looking to tag this ask onto that, but that'll be subject to how successful we are at the commission. So winter one scup. So this is a fairly large pot of fish, approximately 8 million pounds, that's managed by the federal government. Usually the winter one period goes all the way through May, but if you look at the chart, that blue line is harvest now, and that red line is the quota cap for winter one, and we are reaching that quota cap far more quickly than usual. And so there's a very real chance that winter one scup will be closed, before May, which means we'll go with, at least a month without being able to land scup. You can see the yearly winter one landings for New York. Usually we're 2 million, 1 million pounds. Right now we've harvested about 630,000 pounds. And like I said, it's pretty good likely that there'll be some kind of a closure, if not at least a triggered drop in the trip limit. This is happening very quickly. Next slide, please. Then this next slide is a bunch of kind of legislative updates. I know this is not the legislative session. Number one, I want to let everyone know that the amended horseshoe crab moratorium bill was signed into law on February 13th by the governor. So that is, of course, is a horseshoe crab harvest moratorium in place in 2029 with 25% step downs in our quota every year until then. So if 2025 was at 100% of our 150,000 crab quota, 2026 will be at 75% of that, 2027 at 50%, and then at 28 at 25% of 150,000 crabs, and then finally 0 crabs will be allowed to be harvested in 2029. There's a Connecticut bill right now proposing a ban on all horseshoe crab harvest and bait usage in Connecticut waters. That's a bill right now, but I just wanted to let people know that it's out there. And Rob McDoskey of the Long Island Sound Lobstermen's Association actually gave me a heads up about that bill. Finally, there's a couple of license transferability bills that have been proposed. So there's S2193/A6057, and that removes the domicile clause in our transferability, or in our definition of immediate family. And so that's problematic because DEC really has very limited ability to confirm any kind of extended degree of relatedness. So if you remove that domicile clause, it's almost like we can't enforce the non-transferability without actually addressing the fact that transferability is prohibited in our state law in multiple other places. The second bill is S9296. I don't believe there's an assembly sponsor yet, but that allows transferability for wild crab and fruit fish, but it does it in a very strange place under our freshwater licensing system. So it's not really placed appropriately. It does have an income qualifier for 3 consecutive years to kind of keep those transfer licenses within people already commercially fishing. So that bill, maybe that's where MRAC would like to go, but that bill is certainly not perfect. And DEC also would have trouble using a 51% income as the qualifier. Current laws in terms, like, for example, qualifying for the random selection, that's $15,000 on average over 3 years. We can work with discrete dollar amounts. It's much, much harder for us to work with a 51% gross income kind of qualifier. So again, not perfect, but I wanted people to know that these are out there, and maybe we'll talk more about them in April during our legislative session. And finally, S678, that's the same bill that's been around for the last few years. That is the one that modifies our random selection to include additional preference for people who have tried in previous years to get a license, and also allows for temporary emergency authorization for commercial fishing license holders. This was George's point recommendations. This was at one point a DEC departmental. This is the third time the bill is passed the Senate. It always gets stuck in the Assembly. The Assembly version of this bill is A3591A, and if this is important to you, I encourage you to maybe reach out to your Assembly people and maybe let them know that you care about this bill. That's it for me.
Yeah, John, do we want to talk about the possibility of a subcommittee? So, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of commercial reps here today. One thing that MRAC can do is we can have a subcommittee meeting that looks at these bills and comes up with language that meets the industry concerns, and actually have MRAC members put that to their representatives ahead of the April meeting. And I don't know if there's interest in doing that. We have a subcommittee to deal with some of these issues. If there is an interest, we can try to have a meeting and look at language that would work, and maybe get some feedback what also works on DEC's side. I know, Eddie, you participated in that, and we're looking at Charlie because we do have someone with some legal expertise here in terms of getting language that might work. If there is interest, I can try to form that over email with the council. I know TJ, bringing TJ on for the institutional sort of memory of things, and then some of the newer folks. Is there interest in that? I know we don't have a lot of people here, but we can follow up afterwards. Okay, Eddie's interested. Charlie, you interested in? I think it would be helpful to have, sort of a legal view of things. Okay.
I'd say like John Davies might be online now.
He went offline.
Is he? We were losing.
Yeah, I can't actually see. Okay, John Davies there.
Okay, he's back on.
John, I know you dropped out for a minute. Do you have?
I am here.
To be on the subcommittee?
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was having trouble with my computer. I apologize for tuning in late here. As far as Connecticut goes, I mean, there's not much we can do but write letters. Is that what you're talking about here?
No, we're talking about, we have an opportunity as members of MRAC for you to reach out and get language to some of the politicians that are working on this that meets the needs of the industry. So the idea was to have a subcommittee that could come up with some recommendations of language, and then have MRAC members send that to these member politicians that are interested in this. And so we'll be looking for people that would be interested in contributing to that. And if you are, John, I could, we'll form a meeting between now and April to.
And do you think it's really going to do any good? I mean, right now kind of in limbo at this point.
I
mean, yeah, I mean, nothing.
Can't answer that question, but there's bills that are out there that haven't, as far as I know, gotten input from MRAC.
Absolutely. I think anything we can do to help our situation out, I'm all for it. If you want to put me on part of the committee, I will. I have no problem with that.
Okay, yeah, we'll send out an email and try to get something.
And I'll reach out to the industry and see if we can get a couple of guys together. And,
Yeah, I'm sure TJ.
but I think they're just so beaten up right now. They don't, it's hard to even get anybody to respond to anything.
Well, I think Michael and TJ will also be interested in this. I mean, I think the same subcommittee that we had before, I think everyone on that will be interested. So, okay, Kim and I will communicate that following the meeting. I think most people are out fishing right now.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else, John? Okay, so we have other.
Whatever the next slide is, I think it's
Upcoming meetings.
Okay, so actually, we're going to hold off on that because there's some other issues that we wanted to bring up. So we have three of them actually, and I'll start with the two that I hope will be quicker. So we still have two vacancies on the council, a commercial and a recreational vacancy. And like Chris Clapp here today, we want to get information out that we would like to fill those two. So we need a commercial and a recreational seat on this council. So we're going to send out with the bulletin in the beginning an announcement that we're looking for people. So if you happen to know people, these are both Senate appointments. So we would have to go through the Senate process to get people appointed. So I just wanted to make the announcement that we're trying to get the word out to fill those two. The other thing is there's a conflict with the May meeting, and I wanted to see if we could move the May meeting to the following week, which would be the 19th. I serve on the SSC of the Mid-Atlantic Council, and I'm actually missing their meeting today, but their meeting in May is an important one. It's up in Woods Hole. I would like to attend that. It's a 2 or 3 day meeting. Does anybody have a conflict with May 19th?
I have a conflict with 12, so I'd love to see it.
Okay, so we have another conflict with the 12th.
So he's happy.
Yeah, we can't go earlier because DC is going to have conflicts earlier. So probably the 19th was the best on your end too.
It looks like it because if we go a week before, then it overlaps with ASMFC spring meeting. So the other Tuesdays are the 19th or the day after Memorial Day, which I imagine would be challenging. So yeah.
So can we move it to the 19th? Does anyone object? It's hard because we have all these different committees are all kind of chasing the same schedule.
That's a tough week for me leading up to the holiday, but is calling in still an option if I can't? Okay.
Yeah.
John Davy has his hand up.
John?
Yeah, I should be in town during that meeting and I should be there in person.
Okay.
I should be able to make the 19th.
Okay, so let's move that to the 19th. I don't see anyone, at least attending, that has a big problem with that. Okay, the other thing, we've had the issue of ice causing damage to aquaculture, and I don't know, Elizabeth, if you have anything you might want to say about that. Are you familiar with this issue?
Very personally, yes. The ice really did wreak havoc on the industry. I would say, I can speak personally, and then just some general information that I know. We already have experienced about a 30% loss, we believe. It's hard to tell because we haven't yet touched everything, but especially some of the more juvenile species just weren't able to make it. We overwinter our farm in a marina, so typically it saves us from all the nor'easters that we encounter with our farm being out in Gardner's Bay. Unfortunately, this year, that meant that we got the extreme ice developing from the bottom and the top. So I do know that other farmers have experienced crushing and like mangling of their cages because of the ice. Obviously, a lot of the farmers that weren't able to sink all of their floating gear had pretty extensive loss of the gear and the oysters as a result. So it has been kind of a sweeping, devastation across the industry. Obviously, we are all working together and letting anyone know when we see gear, when we're out. We pull things up on our boat all the time and notify farmers just on our broad chat to come pick it up. If we see stuff on the shoreline, we're letting people know. So we are really working together to try to ensure that we clean up what we can on the bay. I have an email that might be helpful to share in case anyone reaches out to the DEC about gear that's been found, because we are trying to connect as quickly as possible and make sure that that's, not an issue for any other users on the bay. So, but yeah, it's been pretty wild.
So thanks, Elizabeth, for that. And I think you're aware that through Lyoga, Eric has reached out to us and there's interest in looking into a potential for a federal disaster declaration for this. And it's been in quite a few news outlets as well. So I think the folks in the Lyoga network are aware of this, but for broader awareness, we've had, I think, really good communication, thanks to Eric, working with our staff. Wade is here representing the Shellfish Bureau today, but he and Debbie Barnes have been working to use social media to help with your gear, finding lost gear, etc. There's been other inquiries to help. They've provided us with information from the survey. There was a survey done, I think, amongst your membership, I believe, Eric.
Lyoga provided that?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Great.
So there's a lot of information being collected, and I just want to make sure everybody was aware. So these discussions started I think shortly after the ice started to break up. I could lose track of time, but
I would say even before that, because we were aware that there was damage and we wanted to kind of be on top of it. So
yeah, so I think the takeaway is that, we've had great back and forth. They saw what happened in Maryland, where I came from, and where they've, I think, actually formally submitted their declaration, disaster declaration. There was some notion that that was all ice driven. It's not necessarily the same in Maryland. I had a lengthy discussion with my ex-colleagues down there. It's a synergy of different issues down in the Chesapeake, and it's not just Maryland. It's my old jurisdiction, Potomac River Fisheries Commission, but also Virginia too. It is ice, but also they've had market dynamics. Some of that was driven by, I think a lot of people heard about this immense, historic almost sewage spill in the Potomac River. That is having a ripple effect throughout the Chesapeake on shellfish consumption. People just don't know where the oysters come from. And I'm sure you've heard that because we've heard that from a lot of folks. If you get an outbreak in another area, people will start wondering about shellfish, right? So in any event, the Maryland one, there is an ice component to it, but it's not the only part of that puzzle. But the interest, I think, what I heard at least, followed not long after Maryland started these discussions. So I know that Congressman Lalota has weighed in on this, I understand, and maybe some other elected officials. So DC has a meeting with NOAA Fisheries, the Sustainable Fisheries Management Office, on the 18th. So it's coming up pretty soon. And we are going to be going through thoroughly with them the protocols, the criteria, thresholds for eligibility. And my understanding also is that Eric Lyoga, and I'm not sure of the mechanisms, Elizabeth, but they're accruing the data on lost gear. I assume the economic impacts are principally driven by lost gear or damaged gear and lost animals too, right? Is there other elements to that? I'm sure we'll hear from Eric, but those are the two principal drivers for economic impact for you all.
I would say those are the main ones, and note that even though gear may not be damaged, the oysters could be damaged. And that's what personally we've experienced is some lost gear, which obviously is a damaged gear in a way. But the other thing, we sustained damage on our engine on our boat. So we did have some, significant costs associated with that. So I would say that there probably are some vessel damage issues to add to that as well. Again, that's
Okay, that's helpful because
that's, across the board, I would imagine with other commercial folks as well.
And I think, hopefully sitting now on this council, you can have a broader, communication impact with you being able to provide, firsthand, as you just did, what you're dealing with. But we'll come back, and even though the next meeting here for this council is largely dedicated to legislation, we'll make sure we have an update for this council where we sit relative to exploring this potential option for disaster declaration. So and I'd just ask if you had any questions now. If not, we'll pick it back up later.
So it sounds like that's more on the federal level then, working with the state to address the federal conversation. Okay.
Correct. It would be the state submitting, and my understanding is that typically comes from the governor's office. So there's an awareness at the chamber, at the governor's office, that we're exploring this, but we just have to let these things sort of play out. But yes, it would be ultimately what Maryland did is submit, to NOAA, and there was a letter from their governor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for those efforts.
Sure.
Would you have insurance on the farm?
We have general liability, vessel, all of those, and only recently were we able to get crop insurance. And that's something we're very unfamiliar with because that really started only in the past couple of years.
Because all agriculture people I know all have insurance, and a lot of them put stuff through for lost gear and whatnot through the insurance.
Correct.
All right. So I'm kind of curious on where you want to go with that angle of it.
I mean, that is a possibility. I think that's dependent on each grower and their conditions. I think the question, that's a little more straightforward. I think some with the crop were a little unsure because that is such a new program, how that would affect us by placing those claims. But we all have been in communication with them. And that's through USDA.
As far as the boats go, I broke ice all winter long. So I know all about taking wear and tear and beating motors up and everything else.
Yeah, it's no fun.
Okay. Government meetings, I think. Is that you, John?
So March 17th, you've got two technical committee meetings for winter flounder and tautog. So winter flounder, they're potentially talking about increasing the possession limit, recreational possession limit. Tautog, they'll be talking about how to deal with the results from the tautog stock assessments, which included, I believe, overfishing status for the New York bite. Mid-Atlantic Council meets April 7th through the 9th, and that's actually in New York City, and of course also by webinar. By the way, you can listen to the commission technical committees. There's a virtual component, although it's very limited participation. New England Council meets in Portland, Maine, or by webinar April 14th through the 16th. And then, of course, MRAC has its legislative session on April 14th. That'll be 2:00 here, but also online. And the commission does not meet again until early May.
All right, thank you, John.
John Davies, hand up.
John Davy?
Hey, John, Did you say the Blackfish meeting is going to be held in New York City?
No, John, the Tautog Technical Committee will meet on March 17th, but that's going to be a virtual meeting. The Mid-Atlantic Council meets in New York City on April 7th to the 9th.
All right, and what are they talking about? Maybe I missed something, but are they talking about any issues or any serious issues or?
I do not know what's on the agenda for the April.
Oh, okay. I
Council
thought
meeting.
maybe you did.
I don't
I'm
know if
sorry.
Maureen does. No, I don't think they've published an agenda yet, John.
All right, I'll get that agenda when it comes out. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll open up for public comment and we have an eager participant.
I was gonna wait actually for the end, but I saw an opening with upcoming meetings. I have a comment, after thinking about it, I wanted to comment on the codfish regulations. So upcoming meeting, March 31st, Jim Gilmore and I are going to sit on a roundfish committee meeting. And that's going to dogpile on us because New York State is open, it's supposed to be closed. And then when we tell them we have no idea when it's going to close, they're really mean. So maybe I'm going to write an email to the legislature. I don't know, without a quorum. If MRAC wants to write a letter to the legislature asking them to move this through, or DEC, John, I just want to go on the record for it.
Yeah, I mean.
Never mind.
Do you have any other public comment?
We are trying. And New Jersey's not.
All right, so I think that's everything. And I don't know, Jim, are you getting your people to come for the next meeting?
I'll have to see whatever they all put some like little sale course if you don't show up.
We get,
Well, Jules show up.
yeah, Jules, you can get an A+ for. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, just and hopefully, the next meeting or maybe the May meeting, when we have a full attendance in person, be great to get a picture with our new counselor, with Elizabeth. And again, we're trying to get those last two positions filled. So thanks, Mike, for plugging that. And hopefully by summer, we'll cross our fingers, we'll have a full council. Go from there. But thanks.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for coming. This is very short for MRAC meeting, but it's nice out. So enjoy the rest of the day and we are adjourned.